Family, lean in for this one. Because tonight's story, it will grab your heart and refuse to let go. She texted the wrong number from inside an abandoned warehouse, her hands shaking, her voice fading, and 5 minutes later, a Mafia boss she had never met replied, "Send the address." Before we begin, my beautiful family, like, share, subscribe, and comment. This channel is our home. You're not just viewers, you're part of something warm, something real. And I love having you here. Now, let's step into the story. Her name was Alara Quinn, the kind of girl who carried the world quietly on her shoulders. A waitress who worked double shifts, smiled through exhaustion, and believed the universe would someday reward her kindness. That night, she left work late. The street was empty, the air cold enough to sting her cheeks. She hugged her bag to her chest and walked faster, whispering to herself that she was almost home. But life sometimes has other plans. She didn't expect the van to slow beside her. She didn't expect the door to slam open. And she definitely didn't expect rough hands to yank her backwards before she even had time to scream. Her breath was crushed out of her as they pulled her into the van. She kicked, she begged, she cried. But desperation means nothing to men who've forgotten humanity. "You owe money," their leader snarled. Alara shook her head so hard her vision blurred. I don't even know you." They didn't care. They dragged her deeper into the warehouse district, a place where streetlights flicker and hope disappears. She tried to fight them off. She tried to reason. But every time she begged them to stop, they grew more frustrated, more aggressive. One shoved her so hard she fell against a stack of crates. Another gripped her arm too tightly, leaving red marks where his fingers pressed. By the time they forced her inside an abandoned warehouse, her body ached. Her breath trembled, and fear sat heavy in her chest. She wasn't severely injured, but she was shaken, bruised, unsteady, and terrified. They pushed her into a room and slammed the door. The darkness swallowed her whole. For a long moment, she couldn't breathe. Her heart raced too fast. Her hands trembled too hard. But when the kidnapper's footsteps faded, she felt something under her apron, her phone, her lifeline. With shaky fingers, she unlocked it. Tears blurred her vision. She typed the message to her friend, the one person she trusted, but her hands were trembling so badly she didn't notice she pressed one wrong digit. One mistake, one wrong number. Please help me," she whispered as she typed. "They took me. I don't know where I am. Please." And somewhere across town, a Mafia boss's phone lit up with her message. And somewhere across town, at the very same moment Alara's message slipped into the wrong inbox, a man built from power and pressure sat at the head of a long glass table. His name was Cashin Moretti, CEO of Moretti Enterprises, heir to a business empire and a silent criminal syndicate left behind by a father who was now gone. His face held no softness, only the sharp calm of a man who had carried responsibility since he was too young to understand it. The room was filled with suited executives arguing about numbers, contracts, and territories, but Cashin barely heard them. He was the kind of leader whose presence demanded respect without a single word. Cold, controlled, strategic, every movement precise, every decision final. His father's death had placed the entire empire on his shoulders, and even in silence, the weight of it pressed against him like steel. His men watched him cautiously, knowing he was a man who never cracked, never wavered, never reacted to anything that wasn't essential. Then, in the middle of that heavy meeting, his phone vibrated. He almost ignored it. He always ignored unknown numbers. But something made him glance down. One line, one message, a stranger's fears spilling across his screen. "Please help me. They took me. I don't know where I am." Cashin's entire body went still. The executives kept talking, unaware that the air in the room had changed. He read the message again, slower, deeper, and something inside him, something he had buried years ago, flickered to life. Protective, sharp, furious. It wasn't logical. It wasn't strategic, but it was immediate. He typed back one sentence, his jaw tightening as his fingers pressed the screen. "Who are you? What happened?" Her reply came seconds later, shaky, broken, desperate. Cashin stood up abruptly, his chair scraping the floor. His men froze. He had never reacted like this to anything. He didn't even look at the faces around him. His eyes stayed on the phone as he typed the words that would change everything. "Send the address." Alara's reply was small, frightened, confused. "Blue Lantern Cafe. They took me when I left, down the street." Cashin's breath sharpened. That was close, too close. Without explaining himself, without a single extra word, he walked out of the boardroom and spoke into the communicator at his wrist, voice low and lethal. "Lock down that entire district. Every abandoned building, every warehouse. Find her." And in seconds, his world moved for a girl he had never met. Cashin didn't waste a second. The moment he stepped out of the building, his men were already in motion, black cars rolling out like shadows across the city. He climbed into the first one without breaking stride, the door slamming shut behind him as he ordered, "Start at the cafe. Work outward. I want every street covered." The convoy sped through the night, engines low and controlled, like wolves on a hunt. Cashin's eyes stayed locked on the phone in his hand, replaying her messages, listening to the tremor in each word, feeling a pressure in his chest he couldn't explain. A stranger's fear shouldn't affect him, yet it did. His men reached the Blue Lantern Cafe first, the place still glowing faintly under the dim streetlight. They spoke to the night guard, to the cleaner, to a boy lingering outside, piecing together every detail of Alara's walk home. She left alone. She looked tired. A van, maybe dark gray, it turned left. Cashin stood in the street, scanning the ground, the shadows, the corners where danger liked to hide. His voice was calm, but carried steel. "Follow the van's direction. Check every alley." His men split off instantly, asking informants who lived in the cracks of the city, people who noticed everything. Old shopkeepers, street vendors, night workers. Doors opened. Whispers traded. Fingers pointed toward the industrial side of the district, where abandoned buildings stood like forgotten giants. "Boss," one of his men called through the earpiece. A van matching the description was seen going toward the scrapyard. Cashin was already moving before the sentence finished. He slid back into the car, voice cold with purpose. "Take me there." The car sped down narrower streets now, where the lamps flickered and the silence grew heavier. His men checked building after building, breaking locks, searching rooms, shining flashlights through cracked windows. Each place empty, each second louder than the last. But Cashin didn't panic, he analyzed, calculated, studied patterns. He stared out the window as they approached the scrapyard, his mind moving like a machine. If they grabbed her near the cafe, they'd avoid cameras, they'd take side streets. Hide her close but quiet. His eyes narrowed, falling on a warehouse half swallowed by rusted metal and darkness. "There," he said softly. "That's the one." The cars rolled to a stop. His men tightened their grips on their weapons. Cashin stepped out into the cold air, his heartbeat steady, his voice deadly calm. "She's inside. Move." The tension snapped into action. The hunt was over. The rescue was about to begin. The moment Cashin gave the order, his men moved like a silent storm. They swept across the scrapyard, shadows gliding through rusted metal and broken machinery. Cashin advanced toward the warehouse door with the calm precision of a man who never rushed, never panicked, because the world always bent to him, not the other way around. A single nod from him was all it took. The door exploded inward, the echo ripping through the dark space like thunder. His men flooded in with disciplined force. No chaos, no screams, just controlled movements perfected by years of training. The kidnappers spun around in shock, stumbling over one another as Cashin's men restrained them. Tables flipped. Chairs scraped. The warehouse shook with commands and the thud of boots on concrete. The gang's leader tried to escape through a side door, but Cashin stepped into his path, blocking him effortlessly. He didn't yell. He didn't threaten. He simply stared, those cold, unreadable eyes freezing the man in place like ice pouring through his veins. "Where is she?" Cashin asked, voice low and lethal. The leader swallowed hard, too terrified to answer. Before he could speak, a guard's voice called out from deeper inside the building. "Boss, we found her." Cashin turned instantly. He didn't hesitate, didn't blink, didn't breathe until he reached the narrow hallway that led to the storage room. He stepped inside, slow, deliberate, and the sight waiting for him made the air still. There she was, the girl whose frightened message had reached him, the waitress who had texted the wrong number. Alara, though he didn't know her name yet. She was curled in the corner, arms wrapped around herself, trembling from fear and exhaustion. Bruises marked where rough hands had grabbed her. Dust clung to her skin. Her breath shook each time she inhaled. She lifted her head when she sensed someone entering, and when her eyes met his, shock widened them instantly. She didn't expect this. She didn't expect him. A man with cold, controlled power radiating from every step he took. A man whose presence filled the entire room without him saying a single word. A man who looked too calm, too dangerous, too commanding to be real. Cashin lowered himself to one knee, not close enough to scare her, but close enough to show he was here for her. His voice softened in a way his own men had never heard. "You're safe now." Her lips parted, but for a moment, no words came. She was still staring at him, this stranger with ice in his eyes and power in his posture, trying to understand why someone like him was kneeling in front of her. When she finally spoke, her voice cracked like thin glass. "Please don't kill them." Cashin's expression shifted, just barely. She swallowed, eyes trembling. "They hurt me, but just let the police handle it. Please." He inhaled slowly, stunned. He had expected fear, screams, panic, but mercy? From a girl who had every right to hate the men who dragged her away? It wasn't weakness. It wasn't naivete. It was something pure, something most people in his world didn't have anymore. Compassion, kindness, humanity, and for the first time in years, something inside Cashin Moretti. Something buried deep began to thaw. Cashin didn't look away from her even for a second. Her voice was trembling, her body unsteady, yet she still chose mercy for the men who caused her fear. That alone silenced something deep inside him. His men stood in the doorway, waiting for his command, expecting the usual cold, ruthless order he gave in situations like this. But instead, Cashin rose to his full height and spoke in a calm, steady voice that made every man freeze. "Turn them in." No executions. His guards exchanged startled glances. Cashin Moretti didn't spare enemies. Ever. Yet here he was, changing an entire outcome because a terrified girl in the corner asked him to. She didn't know it, but she had just shifted the axis of his world. He didn't explain himself. He didn't justify it. He simply gave the order because she wanted it, and because, without knowing why, he respected her voice more than anyone else's in that moment. Then he turned back to her. The fear in her eyes sparked something protective in him, something he hadn't felt in years. Cashin stepped closer, slow and careful, as if approaching something fragile. He bent down again, slipping one arm beneath her knees and the other behind her back. She stiffened in surprise, but he spoke gently, almost whispering. "It's all right. I've got you." He lifted her effortlessly, her weight barely pressing against him. She clung to his shirt instinctively as he carried her out of the dim storage room and into the open warehouse. The cold night hit her immediately, and Cashin felt her shiver in his arms. Without hesitation, he shrugged off his coat, dark, warm, expensive, and wrapped it around her shoulders, pulling it close to keep the cold away. "We're leaving," he said quietly, but his voice carried enough authority that every man stepped aside to let him pass. Her head rested against his chest, exhausted and shaken. Each breath she took trembled with the fear she'd held in for so long. Cashin walked steadily, each step measured, each movement protective. All the chaos behind them, the shouts, the sirens approaching, the men being restrained, faded into background noise. Out here, in the biting night air, he focused only on her. "You're safe now," he repeated, his tone softer than the wind around them. "No one is going to hurt you again." He didn't say it to reassure her. He said it because somewhere deep inside him, he meant it. And as he carried her toward the car waiting outside, with his coat wrapped around her like a shield, something invisible but undeniable formed between them, an unspoken bond neither of them understood yet, but both of them felt. Cashin stayed with her through the night, the shadows shifting on the walls as hours passed silently around them. He never once left his chair. He never once looked away. And then, just past dawn, Alara's fingers twitched. Her breathing changed. Her eyes fluttered open, slow and fragile, like someone waking from a nightmare they weren't sure had ended. She blinked against the soft hospital light, trying to piece together where she was, and then she saw him. Cashin, still there, still watching over her with that quiet intensity that made her chest tighten. She swallowed, voice rough. You stayed?" He didn't speak much, just gave a single steady nod, but the meaning behind it pressed warmth against the cold fear still sitting in her bones. After a few moments of silence, she asked in a small voice, "Can I have my phone?" Cashin didn't question it. He retrieved it from the bedside table and placed it in her hands with surprising gentleness. Her fingers trembled as she unlocked it. The first thing she did was call her best friend. The moment her friend answered, Alara broke into shaky breaths. I'm okay," she whispered, tears pooling. "I'm safe. Something happened, but I'm okay now." Her friend panicked at first, voice rising, asking what happened, where she was, why she hadn't come home. Alara explained everything in pieces. How she was walking home, how strangers grabbed her, how she was taken to a warehouse, how she thought she'd never get out. And then she told her the part that felt almost unreal. "I tried to text you, but I messed up a digit. I called the wrong number." Her friend gasped. "Alara, then who did you text?" Alara's eyes softened, drifting to Cashin, who stood by the window, pretending not to overhear, but visibly tense. "A man," she whispered. "I didn't know who he was. I just sent the message, and he came for me. He saved me." Her friend's breath caught. "Thank God. Thank whoever he is. I need to meet him. I need to thank him myself." Alara let out a small, shaky laugh, the first hint of relief she'd felt since the night before. Her friend promised she was coming immediately. 30 minutes later, the hospital door opened and her best friend rushed inside, eyes wide with worry that melted into relief the moment she saw Alara awake. She hugged her gently, careful of her soreness. Then her gaze shifted and landed on Cashin, and for a second she froze. She didn't expect him. The tall, commanding man with the cold eyes and controlled power that filled the entire room. But then gratitude softened her expression. She walked up to him, voice steady. Thank you. Thank you for bringing her back." Cashin didn't say he was just doing what any man should do. He didn't say he acted on impulse. He simply inclined his head with a quiet, respectful nod. After her friend left, the next days unfolded in tenderness neither of them was prepared for. Cashin brought her warm drinks, making sure the hospital coffee was sweetened exactly how she liked after learning it on the first day. They talked more, about safe things, soft things. He checked her bandages carefully, his fingers barely grazing her skin, his expression tightening every time she winced. She told him about her life, about growing up without family, about working hard just to stay afloat. She admitted she was an orphan, though she said it like it was nothing, like it was just another fact in a long line of struggles. He listened, deeply, quietly, feeling something shift inside him as she spoke. In return, he told her about his father, about losing him, about the weight of stepping into a world far darker than any young man should have to manage. And she listened, with a warmth he wasn't used to. Slowly, something gentle began to grow between them. Something neither of them named, but both of them felt. But the world outside wasn't quiet. Rumors spread about Cashin Moretti rescuing a girl, about him storming a warehouse, about him showing mercy. Dangerous people whispered. Rivals watched. Threats rose like smoke. Cashin told her one evening, standing by her bedside as the sunset filtered through the blinds, "You didn't make me weak. You made me alive." But Alara worried anyway. She didn't want him risking anything because of her. "I don't want to be a burden," she murmured. His voice softened, the faintest hint of something tender woven through his words. "You're the only thing in my life that feels right." When she was finally discharged, Cashin refused to let her go back to the cafe or that lonely apartment. He arranged a secure place for her, warm, safe, protected. He told her gently that she didn't need to return to the cafe, that she deserved rest, safety, a life where she didn't have to look over her shoulder anymore. Alara moved in cautiously at first, unsure of stepping so close to his world. But the more time they spent together, the small laughs, the quiet dinners, the soft conversations, the more she realized she felt safe with him. And Cashin, who never smiled, started smiling around her. He checked on her more, stayed beside her more, learned her routines, and slowly, they began to heal. Not apart, but together. Days passed softly, gently, like the universe was finally giving them space to breathe. And one quiet evening, when the sky was painted with fading gold and the city lights were just beginning to flicker awake, Cashin asked Alara to follow him. He didn't say where they were going. He simply led her up a private staircase, his hand lightly at her back, protective without being possessive. When the final door opened, a cool breeze brushed against them. The rooftops stretched out beneath a velvet sky, the city glowing below like scattered stars. Cashin stood beside her, hands in his pockets, gaze fixed on the skyline. His voice was calm, low, almost reluctant, as if speaking these words made him vulnerable in a way he wasn't used to. "You texted the wrong number." Alara turned to him, her eyes warm in the soft evening light. A small smile curved on her lips. Gentle, knowing, grateful. "But it brought me to the right person." Something inside him shifted at those words, subtle but powerful. The kind of shift a man feels only once in a lifetime. He stepped closer, the wind tugging lightly at her hair, the distance between them shrinking until he could see the hope in her eyes. The hope he had put there without even meaning to. His voice dropped, softer than she had ever heard it. "I won't let anything hurt you again. Not in this life. Not in any life." His hand rose slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away, but she didn't. His fingertips brushed her cheek, tender and careful, like he was touching something sacred. She leaned into his touch, letting out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. "I feel safe with you," she whispered, truth woven through every syllable. "More than anywhere else." And for a moment, the world fell silent. No sirens, no dangers, no shadows chasing them. Just two people standing on a rooftop, finding something neither of them believed they deserved. Cashin moved behind her, his arms settling gently around her waist as they looked over the glowing city together. The wind carried warmth instead of fear. The night felt like a promise instead of a threat. Two broken people, who found each other because of one wrong number. One tiny mistake that became the beginning of everything. The beginning of healing. The beginning of hope. The beginning of them. The city stretched before them, alive and endless. Sometimes fate dials the number for you. And that, my beautiful family, brings us to the end of today's story. If you made it this far, come here, lean in, because I need you to know something. I appreciate you. Truly. Every view, every comment, every moment you spend with me means more than you know. You're not just an audience. You're part of this home we're building together. A family built on stories, emotions, and the kind of connection that keeps us coming back for more. So if you felt something tonight, if this story touched you even a little, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Drop a comment too. Tell me what part hit your heart the most. I love hearing from you. It makes this whole space feel alive. And before you go, here's one question for you, my family. If you texted the wrong number, what twist of fate would you hope it brings into your life? Let me know below. I'll be reading every single one. Until next time, stay safe, stay warm, and remember, this family always has room for you.